You're about to journey into a wondrous land of imagination, as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. That imagination belongs to one Rod Serling, creator of the Twilight Zone. Rod Serling started out as a struggling writer, penning several radio plays during the late 40s before making the switch to television in the 1950s. Serling's big break came in 1955 with Kraft Television Theater's live broadcast of his teleplay Patterns. Patterns focuses on the forced shuffling of a corporate hierarchy, as an old employee is humiliated into retiring in order for a younger man to come aboard. Serling's teleplay was a criticism of modern society and its failure to find importance in the individual.
I'm not a nice human being. What else?
You're not a human being. You're an organizational marvel with no compassion for human weakness.
Over the next few years, Serling continued to write socially conscious teleplays, predominantly for the program Playhouse 90. 1956's Requiem for a Heavyweight explored the plights of a washed-up boxer desperate for work, while 1957's The Comedian told the story of a morally corrupt television star. These works, along with Patterns, earned Serling 3 Emmys in the span of 3 years, an unprecedented achievement. Serling had developed his strong sense of morality during his service in the Pacific War, an experience that gave him lifelong nightmares. However, his bold social opinions weren't favored by program sponsors, who feared having their products associated with potential controversies. Serling's battles with censorship range from asinine requests, such as Ford's demands to remove references to the Chrysler Building from a script, to larger thematic revisions.
Case in point, I think a show I did for the Steel Hour some years ago, 3 years ago, called Noon on Doomsday, which was a story which purported to tell what was the aftermath of the alleged kidnapping in Mississippi of the Till Boy, the young Chicago Negro. And I wrote the script using black and white initially. Then it was changed to suggest an unnamed foreigner. Then the locale was moved from the South to New England. But it became a lukewarm, vitiated, emasculated kind of show.
Because of his outspoken opinions, Serling was labeled television's angry young man. Prevented from expressing any real-life social or political agendas in his writing, Serling decided to transpose his moral principles into works of science fiction and fantasy, inspired by former anthology programs Tales of Tomorrow and Science Fiction Theater. Serling's intended pilot, titled The Time Element, ended up being produced as part of the Westinghouse Desilu Playhouse in 1958, introduced by Desi Arnaz. The Time Element tells of a man named Peter Jensen, who confides to his psychoanalyst, Dr. Gillespie, that he believes he has been time traveling in his dreams to the day of the attack on Pearl Harbor. After both men fall asleep, Gillespie wakes to find no trace of Jensen's existence, except for a portrait of him at a local bar. Ominously, the barkeep informs Gillespie that Jensen was, in fact, killed in the attack on Pearl Harbor. The Time Element, with its dramatic approach, fantastical ideas, and twist ending, set the structural formula for Serling's television series. Titled The Twilight Zone, Serling's anthology series ran for 5 seasons, from 1959 to 1964, and is widely regarded as one of the greatest shows of all time. Through the Twilight Zone's sci-fi fantasy format, Serling was finally able to present tales with significant social commentary. To Serling, prejudice was the most despicable evil known to man, and many episodes explored the topic. In The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, a mysterious power outage turns a neighborhood against itself as its paranoid residents anxiously look for someone to blame. In The Obsolete Man, a religious librarian is deemed obsolete by a totalitarian government, a crime punishable by death. In Eye of the Beholder, an alien woman considered beautiful by our standards is mistreated by her native society for her perceived physical differences. Similarly, several episodes take the form of moral fables, in which their characters' negligent or wrongful behavior becomes their undoing. Time Enough at Last, for example, depicts an antisocial bookworm who seeks peace and quiet, only to realize he should be careful what he wishes for. With their narrative-altering twist endings, many episodes in this vein concluded ironically.
That's not fair. That's not fair at all.
Among the most memorable episodes of The Twilight Zone are those that delved into the realms of horror and suspense. Many of these episodes involve characters who are isolated, either through their physical environment or mental experiences. The antagonists of these episodes include an aviary gremlin, a spectral hitchhiker, minuscule astronauts, and a living doll. In many cases, the endings of these episodes weren't twists at all, but vindicated the seemingly absurd fears of their main characters.
My name is Talkie Tina, and you'd better be nice to me.
Many episodes focused on situational horrors, putting their characters through moral dilemmas and philosophical trials. In 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, the titular characters are trapped in a cylindrical room without means to escape, and begin to question both reality and their existence.
We don't really exist. We're dream figures from somebody else's existence.
One of the Twilight Zone's most identifiable stylistic traits is its narration by Serling himself. In fact, Serling's role often invaded the episodes, giving the tales an ominously surreal tone by breaking the fourth wall. While Serling wrote 92 of the 156 episodes, he was aided by writers Charles Beaumont, Richard Matheson, Earl Hamner Jr., and George Clayton Johnson, to name a few. Another notable collaborator was makeup artist William Tuttle, whose distinct style visualized the aforementioned gremlin, supernaturally endowed masks, a magical dummy, and multiple extraterrestrial beings. Musical collaborators included famed soundtrack composer Bernard Herrmann, who wrote music for several episodes, and Marius Constant, whose highly memorable theme replaced Herrmann's from Season 2 onwards. While The Twilight Zone was cancelled after its 5th season, it had already earned Serling 2 Emmys and a Golden Globe. The series has since seen a feature film in 1983 and 2 television revivals in 1985 and 2002. By mixing bold moral storytelling with science fiction escapism, Serling was able to explore issues that unfortunately still plague society to this day.
Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete.
So the next time you feel like life is teaching you a lesson, consider that it is, and that perhaps you've crossed over into the Twilight Zone.